The opposite of love, a radical perspective. When we think of opposites, our minds usually jump to clear-cut answers. The opposite of day is night. The opposite of hot is cold. So what about love? Most people would say hate. But what if I told you the true opposite of love isn't hate at all? It's something far more subtle and insidious. I believe the opposite of love is justice. Yes, justice. And to explain, I want to take you on a journey through a story you may have heard before, the parable of the prodigal son. But let's look at it through a lens that challenges our traditional sense of fairness. The Prodigal Son, a tale of injustice. Picture this. A younger son, restless and impatient, demands his inheritance while his father is still alive. In the ancient Middle East, this was like saying, "I wish you were dead." It's a blatant rejection of his father, his family, and their shared life. Despite the insult, the father complies, dividing his estate and giving the younger son his share. The son squanders everything. He burns through his wealth in reckless living until he's left with nothing. Penniless and ashamed, he finds himself tending pigs, a humiliating job for someone of his heritage. Desperate, he decides to return home, not as a son, but as a servant. He rehearses his apology, ready to plead for a small corner of his father's house. But here's where the story takes a turn. The father sees him from a distance and runs to him. Runs. In that culture, an elder man running was undignified. But the father doesn't care. He embraces his son, clothes him in the finest robe, places a ring on his finger, and throws a feast to celebrate his return. Now let's pause. Is this just? The older son, a voice for justice. Enter the older brother. He's furious. He's been the good son, the faithful one, working tirelessly in the fields while his brother wasted everything. He confronts his father, demanding an explanation. "I've been loyal all these years, and you've never even given me a goat to celebrate with my friends. But this son of yours, who squandered your wealth, comes home and you kill the fattened calf for him? He's right, isn't he?" According to the rules of fairness, the older son's grievance is valid. Justice, as we often understand it, demands that the prodigal son face consequences for his actions. Yet the father's response is startling. "My son, you are always with me, and everything I have is yours. But we had to celebrate and be glad because this brother of yours was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found." God's love versus human justice. This story flips our understanding of justice on its head. By human standards, justice is blind. It's impartial. It balances scales and punishes wrongdoing. But God's justice is radically different. It's not about fairness, it's about relationship. It's not about retribution, it's about restoration. The father's actions seem unjust because they break the rules we've internalized. The younger son doesn't deserve a party, the older son deserves recognition. But God's love transcends what we deserve. It's lavish, overwhelming, and by our standards wildly unfair. This is the same love that led Jesus to the cross. Adam and Eve disobeyed God, yet Jesus, the sinless one, bore the punishment. Is that just? Not by our definition. But it's love, it's grace. Why justice can be the opposite of love. When we cling to justice as fairness, we often lose sight of love. The older brother couldn't see the joy of his brother's return because he was fixated on what was owed to him. And isn't that what we do in our own lives? We justify ourselves. We cling to being right. In families, in friendships, in communities, we're addicted to proving our point, to balancing the scales. But love doesn't keep score. Love sacrifices fairness for relationship. Love embraces the prodigal even before he can utter an apology. Love detoxes us from our obsession with being right, challenging our view of justice. We live in a world hyper-focused on justice. Social media amplifies injustices from every corner of the globe. Movements rise to correct wrongs, some necessary and noble, others divisive. But as we pursue justice, we must ask ourselves, are we seeking retribution or restoration? Are we motivated by love or by the need to be right? Lady Justice may be blind, but God's justice sees everything and still chooses mercy. The cross is the ultimate example of this. Jesus' arms are stretched wide, embracing humanity, not because we deserve it, but because he loves us. The call to love. So, what's the opposite of love? It's not hate. It's the rigid, rule-bound version of justice that prioritizes being right over being in relationship. If we want to reflect God's love, we must let go of the scales and take up the cross. We must embrace others with the same reckless, undeserved love that God shows us. The prodigal's father shows us what this looks like. The question is, can we do the same? Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more inspiring stories and spiritual insights.